In this episode, Solitude is on the move once again after troubleshooting the cause of the overheat and getting her back up and running. Here's where we left off in the last episode. So she is a beautiful day out, and I should be out there on the boat fishing or cruising or even sailing, because we got some nice wind today to sail. Nothing too strong, but looking at that flag in the distance, I would say right now we're at 7 to 10. I just dipped down for a second, but basically instead of heading out on the boat, we are doing some boat work, which has already been started. Let's get this baby up and running so we can get back to boating. Okay, here we go again, back in the engine bay aboard Solitude. So today my plan is to replace that thermostat. So I'm going to open up the thermostat housing, put my new thermostat in, and then add some more antifreeze on this motor here, and bring it up to where she's topped off, and then run it. And while it's running, check for leaks, check the temperature gauge, make sure everything works well. All right, but my suspicion is we've fixed the problem by replacing that belt. However, let's do some other maintenance. All right, let's get going. All right, here's what else we discovered. So basically, this hose right here, see how it looked like it was wet? So I took the clamp off and you could see the hose is damaged. So I'm gonna remove this hose, couple of clamps. Hopefully you were able to see that tear in the hose. I don't know. It's like you gotta be like a contortionist to work on these motors. It'd be nice if that could lift the hatch up above it, you know, like a separate hatch like what I'm sitting in to get it to the top of that motor. But from examining my hoses, I found that that hose was faulty and it has a tear in it. So the hose is coming out, put a new hose in before we proceed. So another good find. So that also makes me think engine's gonna be fine. These Crusaders, they're pretty diehard. So I'm hoping engine will be good to go. What a pain in the neck that was. So here's where the hose was torn. And then I had to use these Parrot vice grips in order to twist this thing off, because that bad boy was on there. But she's off now. Yeah, much better now. We can get a good examine of the parts. So that's where that hose was leaking. You know, just kept leaking. Antifreeze. And eventually when it overheated, I think that's where it squirted all over the place. Right from there, because you could see. You know, once the engine got hot, the antifreeze found its way out. And there's the other end where the hose was connected. What a pain it was to get that off. But nothing like a little Parrot vice grips. These things grabbed it on and twisted off. Now let's go to the store, get new hoses. So off to the hardware store. I'm gonna grab a couple of extra bottles of antifreeze just in case. And I gotta get a new hose for the overflow tank that I had installed. And I'm also gonna get a new hose, the one that ripped. As I'm walking, I realized I left the hose on the boat. Better to think about that now than when I'm at the store reaching in the pockets and not finding anything. Yeah, so let's go back to the boat, grab the hose so I can get the right size, the right replacement. I'm feeling very optimistic about this job. Then we can take Chiron out sailing at some point once the work is done. First you do the work, then you enjoy the time. All right, well, you're not gonna believe this. So last weekend was my camping trip, and yet again, a belt disaster strikes. So I'm gonna share that short clip of my camping trip with you while I'm on my way to the store. Keep you occupied. After putting together a few days off from work, it's time to head out to Montero Camp at Burlingame. A tent set up in the back in case the oldest son comes. Big brother Cairo did show up, and it's too hot in the camper for them. Didn't realize we had a spot with no electric, so I'm running the little generator, but this power inverter is only 2,000 watts, so it's not enough to run the AC and everything. I gotta get a stronger one over here. But and even if it was strong enough, you can't run a generator at night here. So my mistake, I should have gotten a spot that had electric. I thought I did, but I didn't. So we're all set up. Took a little while. Now it's time to go for a swim. See what my sister's spot looks like. We weren't too far from the rest of the family, and we were right near the water. Those inflatable paddleboards came in really handy. When you deflate them, they'll roll up and fit in a regular trunk. So you don't need anything fancy to take them around. Campground is a beautiful lake, but it does get crowded pretty fast on hot days. You see kids flying and American gladiators in the background. Did I mention paddle boards? Easy to become flotation tanning boards. This was one of those particularly hot weekends. Heat wave. Temperatures were close to 90. Very humid. So most of the time was spent in the water. There's nothing like a nice little camping lunch with the Monteros. And then it's campfires and baby tati with a cup of coffee. We also found some pretty cool camping setups from other campers. And that's it for this camping episode. But of course, as with every adventure, there tends to be a little bit of drama. And so this time, my serpentine belt popped off while on the highway heading home. Fortunately, I was in the breakdown lane and I was able to pull over. But if you look inside, you can see the belt is out of place. I had to call AAA to tow the truck. And my bad for telling them we were on the southbound lane when we were actually on the northbound lane. But they found us. I rented a U-Haul, bring the camping unit home safely. Everybody made it back safely. The truck is getting repaired, and we'll be back in action for another adventure. So the store did not have the original Crusader hose, and you know there's a bend in it. So I ended up getting this Ford hose, which has a similar bend. And all I'll have to do is just cut her right here, and it should work. What do you think? What would you do? Similar bend, looks similar. The diameters are the same, so that's what matters. Inside diameter is the same, so it should link up. I'm gonna go test it out, see if it fits that heat exchanger. If it does, we're good to go. We'll just cut it right here, and we'll be able to slide. All right, let's just double check if she's gonna fit. Don't worry about the angle right now. I'm just checking the fit. Yep. She looks pretty good. It'll work. Slide that bad boy out. There you go. She's cut. And we gotta cut to size. I gave about a little extra on the top just to give me some play. Make sure it fits and slides in all the way. It's not Crusader. I think the Crusader one is definitely better quality. Man, these old school Crusader hoses, these things are diesel. So we're going with the new hose. Got it cut, got it ready to go, got hose clamps. I'm gonna put her on. All right, here you have it. New hose with double hose clamps. Making sure that bad boy stays on there and it's clamped well. Here we go. I'm gonna need to clean up some of this rust on the pulley system to help prevent another belt catastrophe. Okay, so now it's time to fill the antifreeze. And if you've been watching, then you kind of can see that the top of the radiator clamp to the floor or the ceiling above where the engine is, there's like no space there to get a good hose through. So I actually made my own system. Here's a funnel, and I'm using this clear hose that is an accessory to my oil pump, like my pump out gadget here. So it came with extra hoses, so it just so happens it fits perfectly on here, snug fit, and I'm gonna slide it in through the top right into the radiator cap, where the heat exchanger cap, I should say. I keep saying radiator because if it was a car, these are truck engines. If it was a car, it would be radiator. But here, heat exchanger. Here we go. All right, here's my hose set up. Just so you can see, that's a little gap I have to fill. And look how tight it is up there. There's like no room up there to do anything. So with this setup, I can pour in my antifreeze and it goes right in there. Now remember, I've already put 2 gallons in. On the other engine, the starboard side, I put 1 gallon and she's full to the top. So I think that might have been from evaporation over the last couple years or so. And now on this port side, I'm gonna see how much antifreeze she takes. I'm curious. I know a lot spewed out when we overheated, but we've put 2 gallons in. I got 3 more gallons to go because I think these Crusaders hold 5 gallons. I'm gonna pull out the manual. We'll take a look at it together in a sec. So as you can see, we used 5 gallons of antifreeze. And what I've read is that it takes 5.5 gallons. So here's my manual for the Crusader motors for the Pacemaker. They're used not only on Pacemakers, but many other boats. So my boat's Pacemaker 36. So here's my engine manual. And here's the jobs. Here are the jobs we're working at. So this was the belt. See the raw water pump? That's the belt that snapped that we replaced. We made an adjustment, replaced this belt. And then there's also the engine coolant pump here. So this circulates the antifreeze through the engine, and this one circulates the seawater to cool the engine. The seawater goes through the heat exchanger and cools the engine antifreeze. So it's, according to here, says it should be quarter inch play in that belt. That's what we end up doing. So here's our heat exchanger. Here's the fill cap. And I had only a little bit of space to fill. And we're gonna look at the hose. I think it was this hose right here that I needed to replace. So I have some spots marked up over here for jobs. Some old jobs I've done. Here we go. So this is the thermostat housing. Freshwater thermostat, which would be the antifreeze thermostat. And the raw water thermostat, which would be the seawater thermostat. So that's what I'm seeing on top of my starboard side motor, 3 bolts, and my thermostat housing on my port side for my freshwater is this setup with the 2 bolts. Now we're gonna look over and see how the raw water goes through. So here's the motor. It's a little bit of a busy diagram, but raw water flow is in dark arrow freshwater flow, which would be antifreeze, is in the white arrow. So it comes in raw water from the sea. Seacock opens, raw water, the engine spins this raw water pump, brings that raw water up, in, and through the straws on the heat exchanger we saw, goes through those straws, cools the, see the two whites here and here, cools the antifreeze, the fresh water. And then that raw water goes out through the manifolds that way and out that way. While that's happening, the engine is also pumping antifreeze through the freshwater pump, and it's pumping it through the boat. So it comes, circulates. Now this antifreeze doesn't go anywhere, it just circulates through the block. So it's sending it out. See the sending out arrow, sending it out, goes through the block, boom, 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 comes out of the block. It's tricky, right? Comes out of the block, goes through the raw water system, gets cooled, because see, it's coming out hot. It gets cooled in the heat exchanger, does not mix with the raw water, gets cooled in the heat exchanger, which would be like your radiator. It comes back out again to the circulator pump and comes back out through the engine block again. So when I was messing with this a couple years back, this was 2016, I printed that out. I wanted to learn my system because I needed to work on my heat exchanger. I needed to change the zincs in there and so forth and try to figure out what was going on. So I made it a little bit easier by highlighting in green. I highlighted in green the seawater that comes into the system, and then I highlighted in blue the cold antifreeze, and then when the antifreeze gets hot, it's highlighted in red, and you could see the flow of the cold and the hot through the system. Maybe this will help you. I don't know. If you have Crusaders, you can get the manual online. I printed it out. It was a lot of pages, but for somebody that was learning, it was really helpful. So there's this big manual. You can also buy a smaller manual. I have a smaller manual too. So maybe that helps. So now we've looked at the manual and we've done the jobs we needed to do. We filled the antifreeze, replaced the belts, and now it's time to spark her up, run her, see if she has any leaks. Hopefully she doesn't have any leaks, and hopefully temperature stays good and she doesn't overheat. We'll find out, because we need to start sailing and cruising again. Oh yeah, hole's sitting lovely, she's looking good, she's cleaned up, no leaks. I'm really liking the way this job came out. Feel the raw water going through here. Everything is spinning. The engine, antifreeze pump spinning. Raw water pump spinning. I don't see any leaks. I don't see any smoke. No leaks. No leaks. No leaks. No knocking. No knocking, no smoke, no leaks. It sounds good. I think this is a wrap for this video. Let's get her out and move the boat around. Yeah, take it for a ride. We fixed it, fixed the cause. Hope she has a long life ahead of her. It's satisfying hearing the purr of the twin Crusader 350s. I told my kid, she purrs like a lion. I'm gonna take her for a nice little test ride, pump out the head, and see how she performs. And as you can guess it, she performed pretty well. I'm very satisfied with the way this came out. I'm glad I didn't restart those engines when it overheated initially, and I didn't push them, turned them off, and I took a tow back to the dock. If I had pushed them, we wouldn't be in the same situation. Just working the wind and the current, because right now the wind is blowing me off the dock. So I just need to turn into the wind a little. The deckhands at Safe Harbor were kind enough to come by and help out with the lines. I'm very happy with the way this job came out. I can't stress that enough. And I'm glad to have great help at Safe Harbor, like the two young ladies that came to grab my lines.
Okay, goes on what?
To make it easy, I keep two spring lines for the midship cleat on the dock. The black one for when I'm pulling in stern first, and the white one for when I'm pulling in bow first. It just makes it easier for the people on the dock to put on that spring line, stop my forward progress, but also if I'm solo cruising, I can just step off and do the same.
Yeah.
So see that middle horn? Put that middle horn on the horn away from the boat.
This one?
Yeah, put it on the way, just one line, now pull on.
Okay,
It
yeah,
gives
I
you
see
leverage.
Yeah.
The skipper and me sharing some docking tips, and the nurse and me sharing some ergonomic advice for good positioning to prevent lower back injuries.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
We did it. Solitude is back in action. Now it's time to get back to some solitude and sailing. Had to pause a little bit to get the boat work done because that was a priority. We went camping to take a break and the car belt broke. Serpentine belt. You know, it's funny though, I work on these motors much quicker than on the vehicle motor. But being on the side of the highway and not having the tools, had to call for a tow. And plus you need the right torque and everything for that belt. So it's getting fixed by a mechanic. But the boat work, we do here. We do what we can. Thank God for manuals and so much on YouTube. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Solitude and Sailing. We are back in action. Solitude has been corrected. The belt that snapped is no longer an issue. We can toss it. Now, actually, I'm gonna use it to get another spare, the same size. See you on the next episode, Solitude and Sailing. Thanks for watching.